Faster is always better, am I right? What's going on, Midwest skiers and riders? Matthew Zabransky with MidwestSkiers.com, and today we're discussing chairlifts. You know, the things that we like to drink lots of beers on? I'm just kidding, we never do that, right?
It's good to see you got your hard hat on for OSHA standards while you're drinking on the chair. You gotta at least.
Gotta be safe.
You gotta be safe.
One of the most common remarks that I see when ski hills announce that they're getting a new fixed grip lift is, why didn't you put a Highspeed in instead? So I wanted to take some time to discuss the differences between these two types of lifts and why so many across the Midwest choose fixed grip chairlifts opposed to Highspeed detachables. And if you're new around here, welcome. MidwestSkiers.com is your source for all things skiing and riding in the Midwest. So make sure to hit that subscribe button to keep up with all of the latest news and information going on around the Midwest ski scene. Now, before we begin, the first thing we need to do is quickly go over the general differences between a Highspeed lift and a fixed grip lift. And if you already know these differences, awesome, you can go ahead and skip ahead or just stick around for a quick refresher and a little bit of chairlift history. In its simplest form, a chairlift consists of two terminals, a haul rope, and of course, the individual chairs. Now, obviously, there are a lot of other parts as well, including tensioners, towers, wheels, auxiliary motors, bars, gearboxes. You get the point. But for this video, you really only need to understand those few elements. Let's first take a look at fixed grip chairlifts, as they are more common among Midwestern hills and for a lot of reasons that we'll cover a little bit later in this video. But fixed grip chairlifts are fairly simple machines. There's a motor located at one of the terminals that spins the bull wheel, the big circular thing, and therefore moves the haul rope and the individual chairs. Fixed grip chairlifts get their name from the fact that the grip, the name given to the component that connects the chair to the haul line, is actually fixed onto this line. There are a couple different designs, including riblets, which are interwoven into the haul line, and the more conventional style that uses a bolt and tension spring to grip the line, but the basic premise is the same. The chair has a fixed position on the haul line. Now, as you could imagine, since these chairs are fixed on the line, the faster you spin the lift, the more difficult it becomes to load and unload the chairs, therefore creating a maximum speed. But with the introduction of detachable chairlifts, this would change forever. Instead of being fixed on the haul line, detachable chairlifts have grips that detach while they're in the terminal. This allows the haul line to maintain speed while the chair is slowed down for loading purposes. This obviously enables the lift to operate at much higher line speeds while still making loading feasible for everybody. Many consider Breckenridge's Quicksilver Quad, which was installed in 1981 by Doppelmayr, as the first modern detachable quad chairlift, but there are certainly a number of less modern examples that predate that. One of the earlier accounts of a detachable chairlift actually comes from Von Roll, a popular company that manufactured amusement park sky rides and used detachable cabins and chairs for their rides dating back to the 50s and early 60s. Then in 1961, a two-person detachable chairlift called the White Lady was installed in Scotland, and in 1968, the city of Utica, New York installed a detachable quad for their community ski hill as well. And although these came well before the Quicksilver lift did, they did not move nearly as fast, and most required operators pushing the cars and cabins onto the haul line by hand. But that's enough about history. Let's dive into some of the pros and cons of installing a Highspeed lift when comparing it to its fixed grip counterpart. The first and probably most obvious element at play is cost. And as you could have probably guessed, Highspeed lifts are much more expensive compared to their fixed grip counterparts. How much more expensive? Well, that's going to depend on the installation, but at least double the cost, but typically even more than that. For example, back in 2017, Giants Ridge in Minnesota installed two quad lifts, one a Highspeed and the other was a fixed grip. At the time of purchase, the fixed grip cost about $1.4 million to install versus the Highspeed, which was about $3.5 million. As you could imagine, that's a hard bill to swallow as a small ski resort. Would you rather have two, maybe even three lifts, or just one Highspeed lift? But that's not where the increased costs stop, because Highspeeds are much more expensive to maintain over the course of their lifetime. Given their more complex terminals and components, Highspeeds require more expensive parts and maintenance, making them more expensive to operate over the course of their life. Giants Ridge Mountain Operations Manager Benjamin Bartz estimated that they spend about 5 times the amount of money to maintain their Highspeed when compared to their fixed grip quad. But it doesn't even stop there, it just keeps going. Because high-speed lifts are more complex machines, they require more mechanical and electrical knowledge to be maintained and repaired, which is not only harder to find in today's market, but these staff members also come at premium wages. And I know what you might be thinking, yeah, well, high-speed lifts move more people up the hill, but what if I told you they actually didn't? Uphill capacity is a term used to measure how many skiers a lift can move up the hill in a given hour. This figure assumes perfect loading and no stoppages, but believe it or not, a high-speed quad can move just as many people uphill in an hour compared to a fixed grip quad. And I know this seems like it doesn't make any sense, but when you think about it logically, it all starts to come together. Although high-speed lifts move basically twice the speed as fixed grip chairs, they are not able to fit as many chairs on the line due to the increased speed. For example, at Giants Ridge, their fixed grip quad has 100 chairs versus their high speed, which only has 50. That said, the uphill capacity for both of these quads is exactly the same at roughly 2,400 skiers per hour. Now, this does assume full lift speed, perfect loading, and no stoppages, and of course, we don't live in that world, and fixed grips are more prone to that, but you get the idea. High-speed lifts don't necessarily move more people up the hill, but they do move them faster, and this can be both a pro and a con. On less crowded days, this is a massive benefit to skiers and riders. They are able to lap chairs in roughly half the time of a fixed grip chairlift, gaining a lot more laps and obviously vertical. But on really crowded days, however, the increased speed actually creates more crowds both in the line and on the hill. This is because high speeds have fewer chairs but move the same amount of people per hour, meaning skiers are spending more time waiting in line or on the hill instead of riding the chairlift. Take for example at Giants Ridge, if we had 400 skiers skiing the fixed grip quad, we would be able to roughly fit 200 of them consistently going uphill on that lift, which would leave about 200 skiers waiting in line or skiing on the hill. Now if we compare that to having 400 skiers skiing the high-speed quad, we would only be able to fit roughly 100 of them consistently going up on the lift, which would leave about 300 of them waiting in line or skiing on the hill, which is an additional 100 skiers compared to the fixed grip lift. Does that make sense? Now, to counter-argue that point, it's very rare that ski hills are cranking out maximum uphill capacity outside of maybe just a couple days a year, but when you look at it from an owner standpoint, you can start to see why fixed grip chairlifts make a lot more sense for smaller hills. And speaking of smaller hills, one thing many don't realize is that the terminals of a high-speed lift are much larger compared to that of a fixed grip lift. This is due to the added components needed to remove the chairs from the haul line in the terminals. Swinging back over to Giants Ridge for an example, looking at their lower terminal for their fixed grip quad, you can see that it's roughly 35 feet in length with the lift shack included and about 32 feet wide. Riding over to the high-speed quad, this terminal measures 70 feet long and nearly 50 feet wide. This is almost 3 times more square footage per terminal, and given how tight some of our smaller ski hills can be, high-speed terminals would just sometimes not even fit or would simply dominate the top of our hills. And if a smaller hill wanted to install a high-speed, they may even have to level off the top of the land to make room for the unloading terminal, possibly knocking off some of those critical vertical feet. Hey, every foot counts. But for some of our bigger resorts, this is really not a huge concern, but it is something that a lot of us do not even think about when we see high-speed lifts. Another element that we would probably never think about is how the installation of a high-speed lift can change the dynamic of a ski hill. For example, if a ski hill has just one high-speed lift or receives its first high-speed lift, this will naturally cause skiers and riders to ski that lift and the area it services more. And this could be good or it could be bad. But some of the things that hills have to consider before putting a lift in like that is, do we have enough snowmaking on those runs that are going to see more traffic? Do we need to widen runs to accommodate a larger flow of skiers? Are our buildings and infrastructure able to handle that increased flow? And as silly as it even sounds, will this new base area high speed make the ski hill look more crowded than it actually is? Because perception is everything. So as you can see, there is a lot more that goes into choosing a lift than many of us think about. High speeds are great for high traffic ski resorts that have the space and the financials to justify them, but the truth is a lot of Midwestern resorts wouldn't gain enough to justify such an investment. But there you guys have it, a few reasons why Midwestern Hills tend to install fixed grip lifts over high-speed detachables. And a huge shout out to Benjamin over at Giants Ridge for helping me throw this video together. But until next time, I hope all of you guys have a great week, pray for snow, and we'll see you guys out there.